because we're in a very competitive market, if you like click on our ad, you'll see like 5 to 10 different brands for collagen, right? And they're all running offers, 20%, 30% off, free gifts, this and that. And like we have to be competitive. We didn't run offers the entire like last 2 years because we were using like influencers and they were pushing, the product and people, that mentality is a little bit different than coming from the brand. But because we're pushing from the brand now, we have to be competitive, and what we've been doing is focusing on, okay, what discounts can we offer? What free gifts can we offer, right? So we've invested heavily in like shaker cups, drawstring bags, this and that, like stuff like that we could just value add that one, you're gonna stand out right besides your competitor. And that's pretty much the only way to really do that.
All right, folks. Episode 4 of Adspend. The boys are back together. We're actually all on the same continent, which is fantastic. I'm not dead, which is fantastic. Ash is now engaged. Congrats. Cody doesn't have a mic, but he does have his water. So if people get pissed off about that,
got the water.
So if you guys just drop the comments below to tell them how annoying that is. But we're going to be going over a few things today. So first we'll talk about some kind of creative processes, landing pages, and things of that nature in terms of how to drive that forward, how to drive performance, how to measure performance. And then we'll get into kind of, speaking of performance, a little bit of the doldrums. Make sure that you guys know that it's not just you. It's been a tough couple weeks out there, and we're going to talk about kind of what's been working, what's not working, and then just kind of jam on that. So without further ado, Ash, you want to jump into your creative awesomeness?
Absolutely. I think what would be good, and Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, because we kind of had this conversation, and I think the answer to most of the problems we were both having is creative, right? So do you want to
Yeah.
give like a kind of like a background of what you saw in the last 4 weeks, and then we'll kind of tidy it up with like, okay, maybe the answer is creative, and then I can kind of go into what we've been doing with like our processes for that.
Yeah, so why don't we do this? I'm going to tell people what not to do. I'm going to tell people what my mistakes are, and then you'll tell us and teach us what to do.
All right, perfect.
All right.
Love
So
that.
obviously, everyone talks about creative being the biggest lever and all that. We're obviously overhearing that, but it is a cliche, but it's totally true. And my biggest lesson in the last week, 2 weeks, troubleshooting all of our performance, we essentially doubled our ad spend in the last few months without doubling our creative production. And it's like we have, obviously we went viral on TikTok. I've talked about it a lot. Like we essentially doubled our business's revenue overnight without doubling our headcount, and with that being said, without doubling our creative production. So we're just burning through creative so much faster. I think there's a lot of variables. Obviously, the war is a terrible thing, and with that being said, we have to zoom out and realize that there's people on the other ends of the ads that we're serving, and macroeconomic conditions play, but also, you are battling for attention, and most of what we're selling is not necessarily a necessity. So when attention is shifted and the people's focus is not on what we want it to be on, what we're selling, but also with gas prices up and economic concerns and even just kind of global uncertainty, people are going to be less likely to buy. So you're going to see decreased conversion rates, totally. That's one thing. But again, our biggest lesson in trying to control at least what we can is creative. What we've seen, and Ash and I have talked about it, our first time impression ratio. I know, David Herman and Charlie were going back and forth on Twitter about it, and everyone probably has a different opinion. But if first time impression ratio is important, right now there's some kind of a bug. David thinks it's a bug. I think it's a bug because I've never seen it this low. We're at like a 20% first time impression ratio, which means we're essentially retargeting with our prospecting right now, even though we're on broad, so it's a giant audience. So there's two things. We can just sit back and blame everything going on, and we can blame Facebook for a bug, which obviously is a lot more fun to do, or we can try to troubleshoot it. And I think after talking to, our rep and some people at Facebook and some people I respect, creative is really the way to go. Everyone talks about you do your targeting with your creative, so we can kind of get into that and talk about it. But that's why I think the best way to troubleshoot this performance right now is at least what you can control, which is creative testing and processes. So, Ash, I'll turn that over to you. That's my mistake. That's what we're struggling with. I know you've got some really good stuff going on, so I'd love to learn from you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I just want to like reiterate what you were saying is we saw this problem end of last year. Okay. I spoke to you guys a little bit about it, and we were working with some, pretty big influencers on Facebook. And we were like relying on their content heavily. Okay. Like these creatives were lasting for like months on end. Like I'm talking like 6, 7 figures behind single ads. And like around November to December, things started to stop performing, and we weren't ready for that, right? We didn't have that creative process to like back up, when these kind of stopped running out of juice. We didn't have anything to replace it with, so we really had to bring back spend. Um, I think January is when we said, okay, we can't rely on influencers to constantly get us content. We have to make sure that we have stuff ready to go at all times, right? So I think one of the biggest things that people need to have, right, whether it's like an in-house designer, videographer, video editor, or some of these agencies, right, like No Limit Creative or Constant Creative, um, being able to produce at least, at least for us, like we're spending 20,000 a day. I want to be able to test like 40 creatives a week. Okay, so
So hold
I'm
on.
gonna, yeah,
When you say, I just want to be clear, like working
yeah,
definitions, like
yeah.
40 creatives, is that's not 40 net new, and that's not 40 different concepts. That's 40 total individual assets, but there's probably some net new, some iterations, not 40 concepts, right? That's probably like 10 concepts or something.
Correct. Yes, exactly. And there'll be weeks where they might all be net new. It depends on how much time we have to really, dive into it, right? So
Mhm.
I'll give you the overall what we do, right? Here's the process. Monday, okay? Everybody's in the office. We have 3 graphic designers, okay? What we decide on our end, and this is
Full time?
basically, sorry?
Full time on your staff?
Yeah, full time. So
So,
2 are full
okay.
time and one's remote.
Okay.
Just purely working on just like ads. So what we'll do is on our end, we're analyzing on the ad front which angles are working, right? So now I'm gonna put it into perspective of how, like, for us, right? Our main product is our collagen, okay? We went through so many different angles, right? Hair, skin, nails. Within skin, it was like wrinkles, cellulite. Within hair, it's like regrow hair, receding hairline, this and that, right? So there's so many different pockets that can be attacked, and we need creative for each one of those, right? So what we do is we'll come up with 4 to 5 different angles that we want to hit. Okay, whether that's within hair, and we have 5 different, goodbye hair loss, stop receding hair loss, stop receding hairline, regrow hair fast. Like these types of like headlines and angles. What we'll do is I will allocate each designer to be like, okay, well, I need 2 creatives per angle. Okay. So
Mhm.
now each angle itself is going to have 6 creatives. And then we have our videographer who's doing a video of whatever it is. Like, he'll take some of the PSDs that the designers make and then like animate them, right? Or he'll create mashups of whatever we have. So we'll have around 6 to 7 unique creatives per angle, okay? And we'll have 4 to 5 different angles. So that could be like it'll be like 30 to 40 creatives a week, okay? Then what we'll do is on Monday. Oh, and by the way, each angle has its own landing page, okay? The landing page is very, very similar.
Interesting.
Yeah, very, very.
So
They're
can I
very
stop you real
similar.
quick though?
Yeah,
When you
yeah. Go
say
ahead.
angle, or is this so each angle literally, or like each vertical, like hair has its own lander, or
Yeah.
like literally hair and then regrow has its own lander, and then hair and then does that make sense?
Yeah. So what we did was let me back up a little bit, right? Landing pages, okay? We had tested probably 3 to 4 different types, entirely different types, okay? They're not like different changes like, okay, the button's green on this one, button's blue on this one, right? I'm talking about entirely different concepts, okay? We took the winner that had the highest conversion rate, and we're basically like, okay, let's start pushing these out, and the only thing that will change is the main banner, okay?
Yep.
That will kind of correspond to what angle that we're running on the ad. So if the ad says goodbye hair loss, the main banner says goodbye hair loss. If it says stop receding hairline, that's what it says on the banner on the other one. Okay. So like it's basically the same landing page, but it's just the initial, like when you land, it just has that congruency. Then it kind of goes into all the benefits, right? Hair, skin, nails. This way everybody knows what collagen does and all the other benefits too. So with that being said, each one of these angles has its own landing page. And what we'll do is I'm gonna go a little bit into like structure too, right? Right now our testing structure is one CBO at about $2,000 a day, and your testing budget could be whatever you guys are.
So we're saying 10% of daily budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So
quick math, Cody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Made it easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that number for us, I think 10% is good. It's not gonna be too much, right? It's not too little where you don't get enough data. So let's say we have 5 angles that we have creatives for, 1 CBO, 5 ad sets. Each ad set is its own angle. All those creatives are within there, going to the specific landing page. No minimum budgets, no nothing. All I'm doing is excluding customers, sending it to female, 18 plus, broad, and letting it rip. The reason we're doing
exclusions?
Just customers.
Past 30 or past 180?
Klaviyo list upload of all customers.
Beautiful. How do you, or that's dynamically linked then, right?
Yeah. So that's constantly being refreshed. So I let that start on Sunday, and I let it run all the way to the following Sunday, no matter what. Okay.
No matter what, even if performance is awful.
No matter what.
There's no red line where you'll pull the plug.
No matter what.
Savage.
I gotta give it.
I'll pull that. Everything else that you're saying is the same. We both, which I want to talk about, testing in a CBO because that's a little controversial. A lot of people say ABO for testing. I don't want to cut you off, but we'll talk about it later. That's the only thing I do differently is I'll cut stuff if it's clearly not winning.
That's totally fair, and I think, and maybe I don't know. It really comes down to like the performance in itself. The last 45 days, the tests haven't been that bad where we've had to really cut. So knock on wood, we've been lucky enough where it hasn't been terrible. There are weeks where we just don't have a clear winner, where it just broke even or just lost a little bit, where it's okay, I'm not gonna take any of these and we'll move to the next week, right? Okay. And to address that CBO thing, the reason I like using CBO is because I'm giving Facebook the angles, and it's basically picking which angle it thinks it's gonna, put the spend towards. And then within that, it's going to push towards whatever creative it thinks, right? And if that creative is performing, then great. That's probably the winner. And that's the winner that Facebook thinks is the winner. And I'm just going to take that and move it, right?
Can I ask the question? Do you ever force spend with ad set limits where you'll say, hey, you have to spend X amount or anything like that? You just keep let the CBO decide everything?
I've gone through I'm talking about over the last 4 or 5 years where the way to run ads was hacking your way, right? Manual bids, the bully method, all this shit that that was the way to do it. I have now I've lost sleep over it, right? I don't want to do it anymore. I want to set it up and look at it in 7 days and just okay, was there a winner? Great. Let's move that into the scaling campaign the next day. And if there isn't, then we have 40 more pieces of creative coming. So
can I say something on that, Ash?
Yeah.
About the CBO. So I 100% agree with you. We have the same exact structure. Again, we don't have the team and the process built out to get 40 creatives a week, but we're testing 5 to 10, and we're testing landing pages in a CBO, no min and max, because everyone's I do ABO because you got to control the spend. You got to make sure you're getting scientific, statistical significance. But it's
nonsense.
You should be practicing how you play, right? It's I'm going to make a golf analogy, but so many people hit the ball well on the driving range and then they go on the course and they play terribly. And it's well, yes, of course, you're practicing in a completely different environment than you play. And it's the same thing. It's everyone's familiar with the breakdown effect, right? Where it's Facebook is one of the things that Facebook is telling you, it's not just efficiency and ROAS, but it's volume and spend behind a creative, is actually Facebook telling you that they think they've got a winner and they can get better expected outcomes. So it's kind of cheating to put it in an ABO, because especially if you're using CBO for your evergreen campaigns, like
Yep.
practice how you play.
That analogy was brilliant,
Thank
absolutely
you. Thank you.
brilliant.
Not bad. And I hate
No,
golf.
you're, which is why I think this is why I tweeted the other day. Do you test video separately than images, right? And I was kind of struggling with this because I used to have like a separate ad set within that CBO for just
Yeah.
videos. But I'm thinking like if my tests are to decide an angle,
Yeah.
why am I splitting video up, right? So then
That was my thought. It was like, it's got to
yeah,
be the same angle. If
yeah,
they're different angles, no. I know people that'll run one angle. They'll pick like a hair falling out angle, and they'll run one video, one static, one carousel, like one stop motion. Because like
yeah,
then they're truly testing it. Versus like, what
exactly.
if it was a good angle, but you only put video in there? And this is hypocritical because I pretty much only run video. But hypothetically, what if that angle worked, but you only put video in there? What when
Even
stop
retargeting,
motion
you only run
or
video, Cody?
no, retargeting we will do a
Image.
lot more static. Yeah. But yeah, so I think that's again Twitter, it depends. If it's the same angle and you have a I think
it's
you
the
just have
same
to have a
angle, yeah,
reason for grouping things together. It
yeah,
can't be random. You have to have a thought process and a reason for tightly
yeah,
grouping things.
yeah. No, and
Well,
I
it's your
think it,
control, right? That's the
yeah,
control.
100%. I think it's always been. I think now for us, it's like totally just angle based,
Mhm.
and like which style creative within that angle is probably gonna perform, right? And what's really crazy is what we found has been the complete opposite of like our brand is like product white background text instead of like product bright colors, which is our branding, right? And like we're so dumbfounded as to why like a white background or like a gray background, and maybe it's because the color pops, right? And maybe that helps the
Hmm.
packaging pop a little bit. But that has like, if you don't test that shit, then you're not gonna know, right? Like that would have been the last thing I would test until one of our graphic designers was like, I just want to try it and let's see, right? So literally like you're almost throwing shit at the wall but in a very controlled you know
Yeah.
campaign structure that like Facebook is doing the heavy lifting. You can't out like you can't beat the algorithm. Like you're not smart in the algorithm. Let it do its thing. If it produces a winner, great, then you have more ammo for the next week, right? So that's one of the biggest things that have helped us at least find more stability, right? So like the last couple of weeks have been tough where our NCPA is definitely higher, but it's not as bad as it was back in November and December where we were just like trying to get shit
Interesting.
to work better. Like, or we were trying to get things to continuously work from the same creative. And then the other thing, and it really comes down to like if your brand allows for it, is like because we're in a very competitive market, right? If
Hmm.
you like click on our ad, you'll see like 5 to 10 different brands for collagen, right? And they're all running offers, 20%, 30% off, free gifts, this and that. And like we have to be competitive. We didn't run offers the entire like last 2 years because we were using like influencers and they were pushing, the product and people, that mentality is a little bit different than coming from the brand. But because we're pushing from the brand now, we have to be competitive. And what we've been doing is focusing on okay, what discounts can we offer? What free gifts can we offer, right? So we've invested heavily in like shaker cups, drawstring bags, this and that, like stuff like that we could just value add that one, you're gonna stand out right besides your competitor. And that's pretty much the only way to really do that. And you know, so yeah, I think if you guys have any questions, I kind of
I got a
spoke about a
few.
lot, but yeah, go ahead.
Let me
You go
jump in,
ahead, bro.
Cody, because you're going to
Yeah,
have
go ahead.
longer
Go
questions
ahead.
than I. So, one, Ash, your upsells and kind of offers were actually the talk of the town. In Dubai, we had a kind of little mastermind group, and everybody was talking about the drawstrings and the shaker cup. So, they have been getting around. Lots of love there for that. The only other question I had, because one, I think you're absolutely right. A kind of mental model I use is like your ads are a nice analogy is like salespeople. And so you're just sending these salespeople out into the world, and then the better that salesperson is, you can cultivate that. And especially if your ad sets are normalized, you basically have the same manager across all these salespeople. And so if these salespeople work, you're going to have, a hitter salesperson. Then if you move that manager, especially too, if you're at broad, it's going to be, I mean, when you get to kind of your level of spend, you start to get that. But at Cody's level of spend, you'll really start to get kind of some more knock-on edge case effects where you can actually run through audiences a lot faster. But I think you're absolutely spot on. So 2 questions. One, do you ever, when you do find a video that hits or a video that's interesting, do you ever test the thumbnail?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that we've tried to now do is if we find a winning video, we'll replace the thumbnail with like the different angles that we're testing. And like,
Interesting.
yeah. So for example, what we've been doing recently is, and you guys can try this, it's really cool. What we do is in-house, we'll do like a quick recipe, like a TikTok style, like here's how you fill up the protein, put it in the shaker cup, blah blah blah, right? And then what we'll do is we'll replace the first 3 seconds with like our different content
Angles.
team, like the girls, yeah, and like we'll have like 4 or 5 different girls who are just like smiling in the beginning of the video and like pointing and the angles at the top. It's the same fucking video, but the first 3 seconds are different. And and the only difference is the girl and the angle that they're pointing at, right? And like this like helps elongate that piece of content for so long because all we have to do now is like if it starts to fatigue, we'll just go and make another mixing video in a different setting, and that's about it.
Now, do you adhere to your previous kind of schema of aligning that angle to different LPs?
Yeah, always.
So that thumbnail will be aligned to X, and then thumbnail Y will be aligned to landing page Y, and et cetera. Fantastic. Okay, one more question, then I'll let you get into it, Cody. Do you ever use dynamic creative at all to test?
So that technically it would be like a better way of setting things up. I personally have not found like I just feel like it doesn't work as well when we set it up versus
Same
just
here, yeah.
it's literally the same thing. The only difference is the ad copy is the same, the links are the same within that ad set. The only difference is the actual image. Again, it's almost the same thing, to be honest. It's just an easier way to probably set it up, but I haven't seen it perform well for us, so I just keep it. That's it.
Let me see. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So I got
That's
a few
awesome. That's
questions, but
incredible.
yeah, just one thing to add to kind of piggyback off that. So I was actually chatting this morning with somebody at Facebook, and we were talking about the first time impression ratio, and they gave me 3 things to test that are really similar. So one is they told me thumbnail. They said change the thumbnail, change the first 3 seconds. They gave me kind of some brands that are doing it, crushing it. Like obviously it works in terms of refreshing creative, but again, everyone talks about creative being the targeting. We're dealing with a first time impression ratio where Facebook is just showing the same stuff to the same people over and over, and they recommended that kind of as a hack, but as a way to actually get Facebook to deliver these assets to other people, find new people, because it'll recognize it as a new ad if you have a new creative ID. But then also, so again, same ad, just 3 seconds are different. Re-upload it obviously because you're editing it, and then put a new thumbnail. So again, if anybody's struggling and you're looking at your first time impression ratio and your frequency and prospecting is getting high, and you're on broad, so it's not like I can target a different audience. That's one way that you can do it. The other way they recommended influencer whitelisting. Now we do a lot of influencer whitelisting and retargeting, but what they recommended is one of the things that it's looking at is even though you're targeting your audiences, you're actually going to reach different pockets of that. Even in your broad audience, doing that because part of what Facebook's creating as a creative ID is also the page that it's coming from.
You're right.
So there's going to be all that on platform data. So that's just another way where I think like part of the the creative testing and the angles it's for scale, and it's also for all right, we hit that audience really hard for 2 weeks. Let's go hit this audience. Like I'll give you an example. My first company was a physical therapy company. We ran a lot of newspaper ads, and they were like advertorial, very direct response. We'd run back pain for a month. Calls would slow down. We'll run knee for a month, and then we'll go back to back. And you just have to do it to give it kind of some time. And I think if you can have your product, and this is what Zach was talking about a few weeks ago, but like if you can have your product but have different angles of your product, see, it works too well. So take this with a grain of salt, But then Ash, is that something you see where you'll have an angle that crushes for a few weeks and then that dies down? You'll do another one and it goes back and forth.
Yeah. So I think in the last 6 weeks we've tested maybe like 24 different versions of like a hair angle, because that's been the winner for most cases.
Mhm.
Literally just swapping out, like, instead of goodbye hair loss, it's like regrow hair, right? And it could be the same creative, but just different approach on the angle.
You find
Uh,
positive or negative works better? Like
I was just gonna ask
negative,
that.
like good. Do you hate hair falling out versus positive would be like grow stronger hair? What do you find you
yeah.
get a better response on?
No, it's a good question. I haven't actually looked at that.
Mm.
But I'll
Yeah,
text you after. But that's a
sure.
great it's a
Yeah,
good
cool,
idea to look at, because
cool.
it's actually funny, because like we're gonna launch like top of the funnel ads for our superfoods formula, and like I had this conversation with my partner, right? I think the first headline, it's like 1 out of every 10 Americans doesn't get enough fruits or vegetables, right?
Hmm.
Or no, sorry, 1 out of 10 Americans gets enough fruits and vegetables. And my partner's like, well, why don't you say 9 out of 10 don't get it, right? So
Hmm.
it's like
Totally. That's
you
good.
could
That's a simple, good
hit
test.
two, you know what I mean? Like you can have
Yeah.
that positive, or it's like that negative,
Hmm.
and you never know what's gonna work. Like there's no rhyme or reason for any of the shit that's just working. It's like
Hmm.
it just does. Um,
Yeah.
Totally, 100%.
I also think of it in terms of almost like fear or aspiration, right? Like, are
Yeah,
you
exactly. That's what I mean.
fearful of this condition, or are you aspiring to this condition?
And
And
one thing I will say real quick is that when we got very specific about the single angle or benefit that we're pushing, whereas before we were talking about like take collagen, it's good for this, 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 and this. And when we just focused on this, the engagement increased because now everybody in the comments were talking about the same exact thing.
mhm,
So
mhm.
just something that I noticed recently.
I think it's also just a higher cognitive load, right? Like it's like,
Mhm.
and there's other kind of thing too, where there's a certain aspect of it too good to be true. Like you're going to fix all this. Come on. Where it's like,
For
oh,
sure.
I can fix your hair. That's it. Oh, hair, or I'm going to fix your skin, or I'm going to fix your nails, or like there's just a much more, just a cleaner value prop that gets straight to something versus like, oh, I'm going to do this, and this is why it works. And that's just, it starts to convolute the buyer's process. And I'm just a true believer that people buy on a no regret strategy, and people would rather make no choice than make a bad choice.
Oh yeah, totally. No, you don't. Sometimes you don't want to overpromise because you want to make it believable. Like believability is one of the most important things. But also, I think it depends on the awareness level, right? Like,
That's a fair point.
if you have
Or
a
the
very aware
sophistication.
market, yeah, totally. But
That's a
if we
fair
go like
point.
awareness for this one, like I can say, because beauty is a very aware market. People are very into it. They've bought makeup products for years. I can lead with the product, so I can lead with solution, and then talk about how it fixes certain problems or brings about desires. But I can also test that against leading with problem, going to desire, and then bringing to our solution. Like it's something I was kind of talking to our head of retention yesterday about, and it's like that's something that you should test. I think that's a good test. Is do I start with solution or do I start with problem?
Yeah.
And I would say most scenarios problem will win out, but you should definitely test it because there's no one right or wrong.
And to your point too, I think it might matter at what point they're at in the funnel. Where like
Oh yeah.
if they're in retargeting or they're very very familiar, you can just smash them with the solution because they already know what their problem is.
And that's when you're talking about sophistication. That's when you're trying to
For
talk about
sure.
like mechanisms and believability and social proof.
1,000%. Yeah,
Totally.
absolutely.
But yeah, it totally depends. I mean, again, I'm going through breakthrough advertising for a second time. Like, definitely recommend everybody read that. Totally eye opening. And
Aren't you getting if you follow or give somebody your firstborn or something like that, you get show notes, right? Or Notion notes.
yeah, I'm
You
taking
gave me
notes on
shit.
it.
I gave you a little bit of a rub, and you
Yeah,
gave
well,
like
you didn't want it,
3.
man.
I
I
said
was just
thank
sick of
you.
being heckled all over on Twitter, man. This guy, every time I post, this guy just comes out with like a GIF and he's like trying to make fun of me. Like, damn, let me drink my water, all right? But yeah, if anyone wants those show notes, just hit me up, DM me. I'm just gonna make it a lead magnet. So trying to just do it as I go. Do you guys think I should wait until I have the whole book done or kind of send it out as I go?
I would wait for the final product, in my
Okay.
opinion. But
Well, wait, yeah.
I would defer to
All right,
Ash.
cool. So,
Yeah.
cool. So we'll wait. So, Ash, question for you. And this is kind of what we're struggling with, but process. Like, who plays the role of creative strategist and project manager? Tell me, like, obviously now that we know how you're thinking about doing this stuff, that's great, the strategy. But what's the process look like, and what's the team look like for you guys?
Yeah, and if you
Absolutely.
can elaborate even more on that, what do they own? So, like, as a creative strategist, like, what is that creative strategist on the hook for?
Absolutely. So the way that I have it set up is I'm kind of overseeing everything, and like the scale campaigns, right? Like I'm deciding what to piece where, okay? And like budget and this and that. I have somebody that I'm training right now who started as kind of like our like director of like influencer management, but I'm kind of teaching her like how to set up ads, what to look for, and like patterns and data and analyzing all that type of stuff, so that when she's looking at these testing campaigns, she's coming back and be like, okay, well this angle worked. Let's maybe do a iteration and give it to the designers to create for the next week. So I have somebody under me. She like sets up all the testing, she does all of that, and then launches everything. So like all I have to do is kind of just look at it, and if there's winners, move them over. So then we have three graphic designers. One is my other founder who designed everything. Then we have our other graphic designer who that we hired that kind of helps with everything, right? Ads, pitch decks, this and that, the website. And then we have a freelancer who literally just does like ad hoc stuff, which is mostly ads and different stuff. Now, in terms of like the strategy and what direction we want to go in, I'm leaving it totally to them to come up with what the ad will look like, because we don't know what's going to work, right? So I want them to like do their own research, or if they think of like something on their own, this way we have different stuff to test. The only thing that I'm giving them is the angle to focus on and what like key elements they need to have on the ad, right? So like they need to have that specific angle. They also need to show X amount of reviews, or 10 grams of collagen protein, like those small things that need to be on the ad. I'm supplying that.
Some
But the actual like design of it, I'm letting them do, because who am I to say this is gonna work or not work, right? So that's why like it's literally like throwing shit at the wall, and then whatever's working, reiterate. And what I'll do is on like Monday, I'll pull out what was working and put it in a Notion, so that they can see like, okay, well this style graphic worked, this one worked, this one worked, and then they have more ideas to create more designs from.
That was my question. Okay, so weekly you'll take data and you'll kind of communicate that to them. Hey, here's what worked, here's what didn't work.
Yeah.
Here's what I think we should test next. Are you giving them some of that?
Yeah, so if there's like, if we're like scrolling and we see an ad, we have like a group chat where like we'll screenshot and toss it in there, and they can use that as inspiration. But I'm literally giving them like, here's what's working. If you want to make an iteration of this, great. If you want to do something completely different, do it too, because then that could be just another winner, right? So I think it's split between reiterating the winners and like coming up with entirely different concepts. Because I think that's the only way you can win right now.
So it's a team thing. I mean, you're training somebody to be media buyer right now. You're playing media buyer and creative strategist. You're kind of definitely being creative strategist, but then you're also giving your designers a good amount of autonomy in terms of creative, not necessarily strategy. You're coming up with angles and hooks, but in terms of actually the design, you're leaving a lot of that up to them.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the reason we hired these, like, their graphic designer. You know what I mean? They should have that like idea of what to create. And it's a
Yes,
creative expression,
but they also, again, unless you've hired people that have a lot of experience with agencies or paid social, you can have an amazingly talented designer who doesn't necessarily know what works on paid social, but also just, even if they might, they need the feedback as well. They need they're not a data person, but they do need, everyone's different, but I do think they need some information on, hey, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, here's my hypothesis for why it worked, and here's what I think we should test next. Are you kind of getting that to them on a weekly basis?
Yeah, so I'll give you a very clear example, right? The graphic designer that we hired, the first 2 weeks, I think out of the three of them, none of his made it to like the winner, right?
No.
And you were like, get out of here.
No, it was like, okay, so now I had 2 weeks worth of data that I could actually show them which creatives were working. He flipped, the way that he was designing stuff, and now all of his stuff is like winning. So it's like,
So cool.
it's not, I don't think it has anything to do with, I mean, like you said, right, you need to have some idea of like what's working for social, this and that. I think you should have that like basis of like, can I like create an idea and like put it to, create it on Photoshop and like, try and test it and run it. Because like for me, I always thought like bright, colors, this and that, eye
Right.
catching shit is gonna be the one that wins. But like, he was the one that put something on a white background and it like outperformed everything. And so it's like, you know, let them do what they want to do because again, like I said, like I've been saying, that who am I to say what's going to work on Facebook? Because we don't know, right? Like at this point, we have no idea. So
Yeah.
let them create, and then whatever comes back as a winner, I'll show them. If this week didn't have any winners, I'll tell them that, and then they'll know like, okay, this didn't perform, so that they can avoid it, and then kind of
Totally.
rework it,
Scrap
and
that. All
yeah,
right, cool.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
Do
total
you say you're
communication.
using Notion or Motion for this?
Notion.
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 Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I use Notion, but we also use Motion, which is like the creative analysis app.
Yeah.
Okay.
Full transparency, investor in it, but to me, like we wouldn't be able to do it without this. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. It kind of aggregates all of the data in one place, and you can kind of just like create a report and kind of send it over to your designer. And are you using like Ada? Is that what you guys use, or what metrics are you looking at for creative analysis?
For the folks that don't know,
Literally,
Cody, give people what the ADA framework is.
So ADA is essentially like the typical sales funnel, right? Is awareness, interest, desire, action. So you can kind of look at an ad, especially only a video ad, and you can kind of break it down with some metrics and some custom metrics on Facebook. So
What do you
A
look
would
at?
be your awareness would be thumb stop ratio. So that's 3 second views divided by impressions, right? I don't know what
Correct.
you guys look at. We're looking for like a 35 plus thumb stop. I mean 30 to 35 plus. Um, Average watch time. Again, that's kind of your interest. Like, hey, am I keeping people engaged? We're looking at 5, 6 plus seconds.
Okay.
Click through
So
rate
not
or
percentage. So not percentage of video consumed. You're actually looking at seconds.
no, we look at and that's
Okay.
the one I probably look at the least. Like that's the
Yeah.
least important. But it
Yeah.
again, it tells you
are
a
your
little bit.
videos the same length though?
That's what I was saying.
No,
'Cause
they're not. That
because
yeah, that's
percentages
what I
will
don't.
normalize it.
And I don't look at that a ton. And then interest, and then you have desire, which is your click through rate. What in my ad is making people want to click. So like outbound click through rate. And then obviously you have action, which is you can look at ROAS, but there's so many variables. I look at usually click to purchase ratio.
Yep.
I will say I like to simplify it, just the way I think about it. I think, and again, if you say what you want about him and ClickFunnels, but Russell Brunson, I think every ad, every piece of content is just hook, story, offer. So I really just look at it that way. What's your hook? Are you getting people to stop? What's your story? Are you giving a compelling message? And then what's your offer? Are people actually buying? And so that's how I look at it. Your hook would be your thumb stop, right? Your story, you can look at those two metrics. So you can look at click through rate, and then your final one, you can look at your click to purchase. The other reason I like that hook, story, offer is because what you guys talked about, videos are different length, but also you don't have any watch time on a static hook, story, offer. You can still look at a static.
Interesting. Do you ever use the custom metric of revenue per click?
Yes, definitely.
You don't like it?
No,
You
I
seem
do.
a little cold to it.
No. I look at it a ton, but I think I'm looking more on like for creative analysis, like the soft metrics, kind of on platform.
But
metrics.
for but you're looking for the conversion rate. So that's kind of it's almost a function of the conversion rate.
For sure,
Because
totally,
you said
definitely.
right, you said click to purchase, so you could look at how much are my clicks driving in terms of sales. So you can look at sales per click.
Yeah, you can look at that. You can look at ROAS. Like again, there's a bunch of factors, but that's at least something that's telling you, hey, are people actually acting on what I'm trying to
Doing
get them
the
to
thing.
do? But
Yeah.
the important thing is, yes, ROAS is the most important thing. We're not optimizing for a click through rate, right? Like we're not trying to do clickbaity stuff. But just know there are so many other factors in this ecosystem. You have CPMs, you have all this other stuff, you have seasonality. So if you're just looking at creative analysis, you do have to look at kind of those softer upper funnel metrics of it.
I love that.
So I'll be honest with you, I don't look at those as much as maybe you do.
Okay.
I'm looking purely at CAC. Like if
Love
this
that.
ad and this is also on Triple Whale, not even like
It's
Yeah.
specific
on
new
Facebook.
customer crack.
Yeah, specifically new
And CPA.
customer. Yeah, and CPA. If it falls within a threshold that I'm okay with, then I am considering that a winner, right?
Okay.
Love that.
Like, and we can get into like click through rates and CPMs and all that. I'd rather not, but like, it's I think the biggest indicator for us is always going to be like, did you get a customer, right? So that's kind of the way that I've been approaching at least
And
deciding what a winner is.
Only because we promised not to argue on this show, I'll say I agree.
Oh wow, he is. You take the microphone away from him. He's on the AirPods, and now he's tame. What's going on here? What's going on?
Man, it's been
No, I agree. I think there's a lot of other like there's reasons for like these metrics to see like, okay, click through rate, this and that. But like I feel like, Cody, like if for example the creators that you were running right before that were working but are not, have you seen like a decline in those like click through rates?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
definitely. Again, I think my and we'll be very brief about this, but you know, in terms of like brand first performance, like I think that the biggest effect that we get from our Facebook advertising is actually kind of on the brand and awareness play of people that will buy later. So like those metrics, those upper funnel metrics do matter because no matter how good your conversion rate is, if you're paying $6 a click, it's really hard to convert. So like I do need to get my thumb stop better. I do need to get, because CPAs are just an effect of what's upstream, up funnel of it, If all else is equal, that's the other thing. All else being equal, we're not doing clickbaity stuff. We're not optimizing for traffic. But if I get same conversion rate, but I get my thumb stop ratio better, right? I'm gonna then feed that lower funnel quite a bit better. Also, it's telling me that the awareness levels that people are at when I'm reaching them with my ad, something is resonating better. It might not be that they're if you get a high click-through rate, it might not be that they're a bad customer who's clickbaity. It might just be that when I reach them in their buyer journey was early and I engage with them where they were at, and then I'm willing to kind of play that long term. So obviously I'm not doing, just to throw it out there, I'm not doing that at the expense of CPA. If I have two things and I'm looking at scaling an ad and putting it to evergreen or not, I want CPA to be good. I'm not going to pick a higher CPA with a better click-through rate. But we have found a correlation. Usually it's hard to get a really good CPA with a terrible click-through rate.
Ish. Because to Ash's point, so at my previous agency, not my own shop, I used to work at an agency in New York. We ran ads for WAG. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's a dog walking app. Anyways, and what we found was we would run like cute little puppies and stuff. And to Ash's point, like it would kind of do well. And then the performance on the back end in terms of, so this was an app, so like the app installs and then the signups would fall off a cliff, but our engagement would stay the exact same. And so we had to stay away from these kind of angles because Facebook would just, you would just spend so much money because Facebook's driving all these engagement and everybody's still engaging with this ad, but they're engaging because like, oh my God, look at the cute puppy, blah, blah, blah. Not because of like, oh, I need to get my dog walked. I'm going to sign up for this app, yada, yada, yada. So I take both your points. So you
can 100%. I am not saying we are optimizing for it, right? We are not picking which ones are winning based on the click-through rate.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm not saying you're saying that.
Metrics to help with decide what creative.
Exactly.
I think within a specific test, they're great. Like for example, like within our like angle test, to see which creatives had a higher click-through rate, even though they're all the same angles, that I feel like would be good to look at. But like to your point, like some of our creatives have like less than 1% click-through rate, but they're still generating like a good amount. And like I don't know.
You think that's because view-through conversions?
No, definitely not.
Are you baiting?
But like some of these will have
Damn, we almost
CPCs,
made it an hour.
Right? Some of these will have higher CPCs, but will also have higher conversion rates because I think it's the way people. That we're like, it's just better people. And I think you'll only see this with Facebook. I will 100% agree with you on looking at these high level metrics on TikTok. 100%. Yeah,
that's interesting.
I just don't think there's a correlation on Facebook at all.
Interesting. Can I ask you, Ash, why do you care about NC CPA or new customer CPA more than new customer ROAS?
I think because we're at the
AOV is kind of the same for most of the products that you're pushing.
So we've done a study on like which products have higher LTV based on product, right?
Yep.
We had a weight loss product that was a top seller by volume, but
Yeah.
LTV was super low because like people wanted quick weight loss, right?
Yeah,
So
retention.
like we moved away from that, and like even though it was a top seller and like lowest CPA, like
Yep.
it's just a cash play, right? So like we
Yep.
won't get those customers back unless we're able to cross sell them into the other products that we have.
Yep.
Then we moved on to like our collagen protein, which has the highest LTV because they're flavor based and people like the flavors, and you know they
Yep.
actually taste good. So
Yep.
what we ended up doing is like, okay, well we've figured out what our LTV is for that specific product, what the
Yep.
retention
Oh,
is
I'm
on that.
tracking now. I'm tracking.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and then
That's
we'll
I
be
that's
like, okay, if I fall within this like CPA
yep.
for this product,
Love
I'm
that.
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
I
tracking.
definitely prefer optimizing off of a CPA target than a ROAS target.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess my point being, so customer value manifests in either AOV or LTV, right? But if that one LTV is pegged, or you have a very good view of that LTV, then it turns into a CPA ultimately. So yeah, I'm tracking what you're saying.
it depends on the life of your business. I think how old it is. Like in the beginning, we were like, okay, well, we need to be at 3x to be profitable,
Right.
right? Though that at that stage, it's like, okay, well, we need cash. Now, because like we're a little bit more mature and we can just
More capitalized.
acquire, we have a little bit more capital, and then if we do need capital down the line, we can go and raise. But like now, let's just acquire at this number and like let
Print money.
LTV kind of, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
I
I
think it
love that.
depends on the age of the business.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. Do you guys want to move in the second segment, talk about all the shit that's broke, or what are you feeling?
Yeah. I think we did this pretty good. That was helpful, Ash. Though.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
fantastic, man. That's really, really well thought out. I love it.
No, good. Glad I could help a little bit.
And the hair looks fabulous, by the way.
Thank
Fabulous.
you, thank you.
Yeah, get hype. So what's been working? What's not been working? How do you guys want to approach this? Or just
Nothing's
happiness?
working.
Just
Nothing.
just
Nah, I'm
sending
just
good
kidding.
vibes
Yeah,
out to
I mean,
people?
no, but it's hard. I think again we talked about this right before we came on, but like it's pretty tough. We've had a tough week. We were riding a high. It's been a tough few weeks, and I think it's super important just to remember that like there are people on the other side of our ads that we're serving, and there's a
100%.
few things. First of all, let's just zoom out, right? Obviously, we got Facebook bugs, CPMs, data stuff going on, but really there's some terrible stuff happening in the world, and I don't want to make this a political thing at all, but my heart definitely goes out for everyone that's affected by this, and we just have to remember that like you're always fighting for attention, right? And like we're a brand that gets a lot of PR, and publications are trying to get their views as high as possible so they can get revenue. What's going to get more right now, right? What's on people's minds and what's really all people want to talk about, or beauty products, right? So there's that. Like our referral traffic, our PR traffic is way down, right? And we also have to remember if we're serving ads to people on Facebook, they don't care about that at all. Their minds are in a million places. So we just have to zoom out. One bad week is not going to kill anything. Try to focus out, and this is what I'm reminding myself because this is not trying to be hypocritical, but this is advice to myself. Like zoom out. Like you still probably have a good business. Bad day, one bad week is really does not make or break a business. And focus. There's really only so much we can do right now. Unfortunately, control what you can. The biggest thing you can control is probably how much you're spending and your creative testing, right?
Yeah.
So like Ash talked about, like I think that's super important and relevant. But also just kind of zoom out a little bit, work on projects that, hey, when the economy is great, when things are back to normal, like guess what? You're going to wish you worked on those creatives or those landing pages or reworking that email flow or redoing your brand positioning now. So
Or
when
the
people
systems.
or the systems, hiring people, whatever it is, just take that
Yeah.
longer term view and kind of zoom out. That's at least advice to myself that I'm working on.
Yeah, I'd piggyback off of that too. Is people got to remember like your feed isn't just ads, and so like you have a crazy video of a bomb dropping on a hospital of kids, and then right below that is your ad. Like people might not be in the same headspace to buy like that they were a month ago when that was a stupid puppy video or something like that. So there's to your point, Cody. I think you're right on where there's people like numbers aren't buying your products, people are,
Yeah,
and so
and-
like. People are affected
and that's
by
one
this.
thing. They're affected. Obviously, attention is affected, but also finances are affected. I mean,
100%.
all anybody wants to talk about right now is gas prices, and for good reason.
100%.
You know, I don't know the stats on it, but the majority of Americans do live paycheck to paycheck, and
Yeah.
what we are selling a lot of times is a luxury. It's not a necessity. People don't necessarily need collagen, or they don't need beauty products. They like it. It makes them feel good. Emotionally, it fixes a problem. But if they've only got so much cash to go around, like they've got to get to work, they've got to drive their
Yeah.
kids to school. And
Well,
even if it's not truly paycheck to paycheck, I think that at least the concern of it is like, hey, let me save up. Like, I don't need to.
that was just going to nail that. Like a lot of times it's not necessarily the hardships. Like when people are broke, they'll buy stuff. It's uncertainty. That is a
Totally.
killer to the business where people are like, they're going to hoard. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like our gas price is going to go to $40 or like, are we going to go to war? And then that's going to change everything. Like there's all these, that's a nice timepiece, Cody, man. I got to step up. Haircuts, timepieces. Jesus guys, you got to fucking lapping me here. But yeah, I think there's a lot of like user psychology here in that where, you know what I'm saying? Like the uncertainty is, if there's anything that kills a business, it's uncertainty. Where if you just tell me it's going to be bad, then I can build a system around that and I can start to build preferences around the bad. But if I don't know what the bad is, you often suffer more in your mind than in reality.
Totally. 100%. People just, an uncertain mind doesn't buy, and humans are essentially
That's a good line.
hardwired to be
That's a great
uncertain.
line. Yeah, that's
Totally.
a great line.
And I've seen, again, like my original businesses kind of, selling kind of face to face and stuff like that, selling in the beginning of COVID, like was really difficult. People weren't buying stuff. And then as soon as people, government started printing money, we had a little bit more certainty and it became normal. Like that's when I think the market kind of took off,
Yep.
So that's another thing is, and I know we've talked about it. I don't have any data on this, but my hypothesis, I'd be super curious if there is a correlation between like overall industry ROAS or MER and like the S&P 500, because like when people are worried about the economy, they're not shopping as much and they're not going to buy, or again, most DTC products, pretty much every DTC product is a luxury.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. It is interesting. I'll see if I can do because the high level data. I'll see if I can map that out because Ash, when we were talking about that, had a good point where when the market got wrecked by COVID, the DTC's kind of space was screaming. But it is interesting that you say that though, because the other thing is like that trickles down. I mean, I don't believe in trickle down economics. Don't put me on that. But there is some knock on effects. Like the capital markets are affected, right? I mean, look at Facebook, look at Twilio, look at like these huge growth stocks have been taken. Shopify's down 63%. All-time highs. Like that is significant. That's proper money, dude. That is a real haircut. You're talking almost 2/3 of your business or of your market cap gone, like overnight, essentially in like 6 months. That's absolute anarchy. And so there's definitely a knock-on effect with that, in my opinion.
Ash, you got anything?
No, I kind of want to go off of what you were saying. It's like you can't control these things, right? I think what the whole basis of this podcast was like, here are the things you can control, right? So talk about like creatives and landing page and this and that, but like take the, like Cody, like you said, like take the time to like, okay, if you need to like pull back a little bit, pull back, but like focus on the areas that you can, right? So like for us, we're like focusing on like retention, right? Like you said, rewriting some of these flows. We are officially launching in Vitamin Shop this week. Like, how do we support that, right? So like,
Congrats.
thank you. So like figuring out those other elements to your business, like this will fix itself in time, right? Like knock on wood, things will get better, and they always have gotten better. Just focus on other things. Like if you want to like come up with a creative project, like you said, right? Like focus on that. If you want to like start a podcast. Like just do something that's like kind of outside of the ad account, because you're gonna drive yourself insane.
That's a good podcast name. Damn it.
What?
Which is outside the ad account.
Ooh.
That's a good podcast name. Jesus. You guys are spitting
Yeah.
fire today. It feels good to have the boys back together. The Trinity of awesomeness. We're back again, baby.
And we're all
back.
getting along today.
I know. It's like one big happy family. It's fantastic.
The reunion is happy.
All right, boys. We're bumping up against about 50 some minutes. Do you want to wrap it up, or is there anything else we wanted to jam on?
Let's end it on this. What is your biggest learning lesson from this past week, each of you?
Ooh, that's a great question. Why don't you go first since you asked it?
That was, I mean, cop out. That was mine. Was don't scale ad spend without scaling creative production.
Yeah. So with that, let me ask you one thing. Are you trying to build a ratio?
So I posted on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it's pretty interesting. Just I kind of seeing what people think about, like, yes, we've talked about, 10 to 15% of your total spend budget should be into creative testing campaigns.
No, no, no,
But
no, no, not
yeah,
that.
no, I
Not.
hear you.
Oh, you're getting
But
me.
in,
Okay.
but in terms of creative production, I think I was just curious, so I posted a tweet and a question on Twitter, and it seems like there's no one answer, but yeah, I mean about 10% of total budget should be spent on, so we're spending 100,000 a month on ads, you should be spending 10,000 a month on just a creative, not even testing behind it, but just a creative.
Yeah, no, no. I meant so that I'm 100% in
Okay,
line with.
my
I
bad.
meant
Okay, my
in
bad.
terms of your scale. So, like, do you want to have X amount of creative pieces for like every $10,000 that you scale? Because you said you doubled up, and that kind of broke the system.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
for
of course. Yeah,
every
yeah.
amount I scale, should I have at least another 40 creatives for every $10,000, or for every X amount of tranches that I hit? If I get to $50,000 in spend a day, I want to have at least X or Y amount of creatives. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's a great question. Sorry. I didn't totally understand at first. My bad. But yeah, let me think about that a little bit. I don't totally know. I mean, what we're trying to do is 5 a week. The thing is, we were getting by because I think we had good creative. We had, a product and a brand people want. Like, we are getting by with not enough creative.
Yeah.
I don't think we were really doing it properly. We had amazing performance, but I think that's partly why. Versus if we had the right amount, we wouldn't be hit so hard. I think at our scale, at our size, we got up to spending on Facebook 30K a day. We've pulled back a little bit. Like, we definitely need 10 a week. We
Yeah.
definitely need 10 a week. We were
Wait,
at
have you
5 a
tried
week
like
before.
static images
Yeah, we run a little bit of static.
at top of the
We
funnel? Does it do well?
This is kind of a subjective thing, kind of a brand thing. I prefer video.
Yeah.
Just for kind of recall and awareness.
Yeah. No,
Video's
I
done
agree.
a lot better for us though.
No, I agree. I mean, for us, static is like just crushed. So like,
It's
I think
crushing.
it's easier for us to pump out 40
Yeah.
pieces of creative where you need to film,
For sure.
more and more. So
We just
not
we have a shoot with a company on Monday. Super excited about them. And they're kind of going to give us a ton and do all these concepts. So hopefully that we just couldn't hire people internally fast enough. So we finally found, an agency who we think can do a really good job of this and get us the assets we need.
no.
And
Great.
speaking of hiring, congrats on the CX GOAT, Eli Weiss.
man.
That's a fantastic
Man,
hire.
appreciate
That's a
that.
beautiful hire. That's
Let's
amazing.
plug that pocket. That podcast was great that he was on. You're Not Your ROS.
Oh,
with
thank you. He's a
you.
gem,
Yeah,
man.
that's
He
a good
is
one,
a
man.
gem. Yeah. Look at that little
All right,
house
all
ad
right,
here.
all
Little
right.
house ad.
Enough about me. What would you guys say to finish it up? And your biggest lesson past week?
What was my biggest lesson this past week? I think for me, ultimately getting to the root and then understanding. I mean, you took all the good answers. I mean, really, I think it is controlling what you can control and then making sure that you're working on creative activities. Like there's always going to be something that you can do to improve. And then if it's not actually building, you can do building on the internals. Like you can build better SOPs, you can build better systems, you can build better ways that you document things, you can build like all these things that like it sounds boring, but at the same time, like that's really going to be helpful to building a better and more robust business. Cause like, I think Ash is on top of it where, there will be a bounce back. Like I would never bet against America. Like this economy just really always, people love to spend money here. And so I think ultimately having that and then being able to, have those nets ready to deploy to catch all that money when things do bounce back is going to be something that you're going to regret rather than kind of bitching or worrying about things that you can't control. And so it's kind of a cop-out answer because it was the one that you gave, but I think it's very prescient. I think that's really not only in ad buying, but in life, like control what you can control. And ironically, when you do that, your circle of control actually expands and you can actually impact more things.
And you're kind of saying be ready too, like control what you can control, test now, so that when things rebound, like you'll be ready.
Yep. No,
Precisely.
100%.
What about like
I
mentally? Like, do you guys like? Does it affect you kind of mentally and personally when things are down? Like for me, it totally does, and it's not healthy. Like I think that's like the growth paradox is like we're probably into this industry because we love growth, but when we don't have it, it's like I take it way more personally than I should.
So
Yeah.
let me answer that because
Yeah.
I was where you were last year, like that
Mhm.
October, November area. Um, when things started to like kind of slow down and I couldn't figure it out, right? Like the answer was there. It's creative, but I just wasn't wrapping my head around it. Because it's like we've been using this for the last 2 years, things have been good, and then all of a sudden, like, is it just Facebook? Like, am I just not a good marketer? This and that. I
That's what
was
I've been
where
thinking.
you were. Yeah, I was where you were. Like in that time, like I literally looked at my founders in the face and I was like, I can't do this anymore. We need to hire like another media buyer. I need to hire an agency, whatever it is. So we tested a few different people and like we're all doing the same shit. Like
Yeah.
that. Like
Hmm.
there's nobody that's like infinitely better, like whatever, like everyone's doing the same exact thing. Everybody's facing the same exact issues. So you have to constantly remember that it's not you. You know what you like. You know what the answer is, right? You're said it to us. It's creative. You need to up the testing, this and that. You have the answer. Work on that, right? And that should give you peace of mind because it's like it's not you. It could be the platform. It's all these macroeconomics. You know for a fact it's not you. You've gotten the company to this point. It has never been you and it won't be you. So just constantly remember yourself of that. Remind
Thanks
yourself
for
of
thanks for the therapy session, man. I appreciate it.
I,
No,
I
that
know,
that's all.
right? Do
Yeah,
I owe
no,
you some
it's
money
what I
for that?
needed.
I'm all
I know,
pumped
right?
up.
Invoice me.
That's
I
amazing. Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, you're 100%
Yeah.
right, and it helps me. I hope anybody listening to this that's helpful for as well because I've been going through it this week.
Yeah,
It's
and I
not
think
you.
too, there's a certain aspect of like, in my opinion, this life's about building deep connections with humans you care about. Like at the end of the day, we're just slinging ads, and we're lucky to live in the States, and like we could have to be fighting for our freedom and all this stuff. So I think having gratitude, and then also there's a stoic saying that I repeat to myself whenever I get stressed out, that it's not important, it's not personal, it's not forever. I just tell myself that over and over and over again because it's hard. And like you said, Cody, like all of us in these positions, we're high performers, and when we're not performing, it's a challenge to understand why. But you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and then use that anxiety to get better. And that's really what, like, to go back to sports analogies. I mean, Tiger Woods, like one of the greats of all time, right? Like when he would have a bad day, like it's not like he would go cry and lick his wounds. He'd say, okay, dissect what I did wrong, and then he's right back out on the range or on the course trying to
Or he
figure out.
also did some other stuff.
Well, hey, you had to do it, didn't you? You had to go there. I tried to step into your golf world and give you the golf analogy, and this is how you do me, and this is how you do me. Incredible, incredible. But anyways, you get what I'm saying. That like there's two ways to take it. You can get mad about it, or you can make yourself better. And I think that the latter is always the better choice.
It's crazy how quickly you forget, though. It's like 2 weeks ago, you're crushing it, and it's like, oh, things are great. I'm a great marketer. And then it's like, oh, man, like, I better go find a new job.
Picking out the keys to the Lambo and everything.
Yeah. Buy my course.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you haven't seen the course buying of late, have you? Yeah, it's definitely usually only bull markets for that. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a plethora of wisdom here for you all to pull from. So I'm glad you guys joined us for over an hour. Over an hour, boys. It felt like 20 minutes. It's good to have the gang back
Love
again.
it. Love it always.
Cody, tell us where everybody can find you.
Find me on Twitter at Cody Plof. Subscribe to the newsletter, link in bio.
Which is
Send a newsletter.
fantastic.
Appreciate that. Send a newsletter every Monday or Tuesday just about what I'm learning, what I'm going through. This week's, we just launched some new PDPs. I'm going to talk about kind of the results from that and why I think we're, how we kind of approach it, what we learn. So if you want to learn about that, sign up.
I love it. Yeah, it's absolute heat. And for people that aren't in the know, what's a PDP, Cody?
Product page.
Beautiful, beautiful. Ash, where do the people follow you at?
Follow me, Adspend Melwani on Twitter. If you need some collagen in your life, we just launched a vitamin shop. So if you have one around you, please go in.
Go support the homie.
See,
I'm gonna try to make it this weekend.
Just go in, talk to them, and be like, "Hey, do you guys have Avi collagen?" They're probably gonna be like, "Oh, we just got it in. We don't know. Let's check." Right? Just if you can take a picture and tweet me, that'd be great.
I'm gonna go this weekend.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to buy anything. Just send me a picture so we can see that it's there. And just talk to the rep and be like, this is awesome. But yeah, that's all from me.
Congrats again on the engagement in London.
Thank
Beautiful
you.
pictures, right by
you.
right by everything. Yeah, it was fantastic. Beautiful stuff.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's it. Adspend number 4 in the books. If you want to get more involved with Triple Whale, it's trytriplewhale.com. We're on the Bird app at Triple Whale. And then we also have a publication called Whale Mail that goes out every Tuesday, Thursday. Cody has been a frequent guest in there with his beautiful prose. And then, yeah, I think that's all we got. Thanks so much, you beautiful people. Cody, Ash, it's always a pleasure, my friends. We'll see everyone on the flip. I still need to sign off. I still got to get there, but we're flowing. So the vibes are good. Everything is just money. And
no one listens to the end anyways.
Yeah. Well, if you comment on when we post this, comment if you listen to the end. Orcas are not whales, and we'll know that you listened all the way to the end.